morning, everyone. Morning. Morning, everyone. Today we're going to have the August 21st Toastmasters meeting. I'll be acting president. Expect Jennifer to be here next week. Our topic for this today is moving forward. I'll go ahead and start the invocation also. Everybody stand. So I learned about our topic today, which is moving forward. The first thing that came to my mind when Mark said that was the typical way of thinking about moving forward in life. We always think about where we were in the past, what we're doing in the present, and how we want to project ourselves in the future. But I was thinking about it. What are other ways of moving forward in life? I was thinking, well, what if instead of making it linear, you kind of think of other things. You expand your thinking instead of just one line, thinking it into something very wide, like a wide road. Instead of think of it that way. In terms of thinking of the past, you think about other aspects of the past that you want to learn from. The present, think about all the options that you may want to do in the present. And the future, think about all the possible futures that's possible for you. In other words, be more broad and open to the possibilities of life instead of being linear, which is the conventional thinking in terms of moving forward. And that's my invocation for today. Thank you very much. And so we'll get started with, I believe we're going to get started with table topics.
Yeah.
It'll be Mark.
Okay.
That's like Toastmasters.
Yeah, we'll do that.
And then you call, yes, you can have it, yes.
Okay, for today, we're going to try something a little bit different. We're going to take a look at trying out table topics first before the meeting, give some people a chance to trickle in. Our table topics master for today is Harun. Oh, I guess we could do the roles first. Okay, we'll call the duty masters. Before we jump into table topics, we'll go into what the duty masters roles are today. For our counter, we have Wyman. Wyman, can you give us a report on what to do, what you're going to do for our counter?
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. I'm going to count ahs and ums today. And every time I hear ahs and ums or you-knows or okay, so I will note it down. And then at the end of the meeting, I'll let you know how many you have made. And supposedly we have a fine, but I'm not sure about today. Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay, next up we have timer. I'm going to be taking on the role of timer today, so I think everyone's aware. But for timing, I'm going to basically put up the green card for the prepared speeches at 5 minutes, the yellow card at 6 minutes, and the red card at 7 minutes. Whenever the red card is put up, you have 30 seconds to wrap up your speech. Otherwise, you'll hear a ding, and you'll have to wrap up your speech. Similar for evaluations, I'll put up the green card at 2 minutes, yellow at 2:30, and red at 3. For table topics, there's no real time limit for it, but we try to get our speeches to at least 1 minute. So I'll show the green card at 1 minute, yellow at 1:30, and red at 2. And I won't ring the bell if you're feeling particularly inspired. So that's my report. Word master for today. Dan, can you tell us what the word of the day is?
Thank you. The word of the day is not kinwipple, it's tortuous. It's marked by repeated turns or winding, crooked or tricky. Hopefully people will be mostly using this in the negative today. Yeah, he didn't get to the point in a tortuous route. But since our invocation actually did advocate getting there non-linearly, perhaps that won't be a negative today, getting there by a tortuous route. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. We don't have a grammarian today. Our ballot counter. Maggie, would you be able to take on the ballot counter? Okay. I'm going to give you this. Can you briefly talk about what the ballot counter does?
Okay. So I will collect the vote for the best speaker and best evaluator. Also for best table topic speaker. So later on, just forward your vote to me.
All right, thank you. And our video master for today, there is no video master. It's just going to be right there, static. But everybody knows the drill. Once the meeting is complete, this video will be uploaded to our private YouTube channel. So go ahead and take a look to see how not just you speak, but how you move on the stage. So yeah, it's a great resource. So I recommend everybody to try it out. And with that concludes our Duty Masters. We're gonna try something a little different today. We're gonna try the table topics before our prepared speeches. So for our table topics master, we have Haroon. Haroon he's a returning member, and he's been giving a lot of speeches and being very active. So please help me welcome up Haroon.
Toastmasters, welcome guests, and fellow members. Morning.
Good morning.
So today's theme is moving forward, and I sat down to think about what does moving forward mean, and I'd like to get your take on that topic. So I'm going to start off with a little quote. Albert Einstein said that life is like a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving forward. Dan, so what do you think Einstein meant by that?
Well, that one can be taken both in a literal sense or a figurative one. Literally, if you don't do anything, lying in bed all day, you will die very quickly. But more figuratively, life is all about change. Getting involved in things, getting up, doing something different than you did yesterday, learning. And that's what life is all about. If you just stay in one place, if you're static, if you're not putting any variety into your life at all, then you're not really living. Your horizons are just going to shrink over time until there's pretty much nothing left. So you constantly have to learn new things, try new things, or at least vary routine a little bit in order to actually progress, to move forward, to just avoid stagnation. And that's what I think that Einstein was referring to. That was probably pretty short, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Dan. So let's change gears a little bit and talk about what are the things that prevent people from moving on? Maggie.
Let me repeat your question. Is it what's the reason to make people stop moving on?
So what kind of behaviors do you think that people engage in that prevent people from moving forward in their lives? They get stuck in the rut or something.
Great question. Let me relate the one is what's the reason it happens on me. Finally, I'm going to move my new office to the new location. It's been for at least 3 years talking about moving, and I always hesitating, always find reasons that I don't want to move because I have a 3 windows office, very good view, and second of all, I feel I'm lazy. I have good neighbors, good office neighbor. I don't want moving. And third said, my budget. What's my budget? I think if I move the bigger space, of course it's pay higher rent than what I'm right now. Then I don't want to move. Finally, this box just take me 2 weeks. I find a new office. Why? Because landlord finally is lost the patience of me. He want to put on my rate to increase. I feel like no, I don't want the increase. Well, for him it's reasonable. For me, I feel no, this is not reasonable. Second of all, I definitely need more space for the second person to sit in the office. So finally, it's just taken me 2 weeks. It's may take me 3 years think about the moving. Take me only 2 weeks find the place and immediately can move out. So I think when the person read on the other things on the life, people always when even something happen on you, you have to move on. Whatever your job or relationship, you just find the reason for yourself. Oh, I remind me some beautiful time or good time what happened before. So make me want to stay there. I don't want to move on. And people all want to stay their comfort zone. They don't want to move. Unless outside environment push you, you have to go out. And then people painfully to go out. When they go out that day, they look back and say, oh, that's not bad. Actually, it's nothing. It's not cost me or it's very bad to me move to forward. So I think people just have to, you have to adjust yourself. It's not every person can adjust yourself quickly, but you have to remember, when time passed, it never can be come back. So only look forward rather than stay here to think about the back. Thank you.
These days, we get the impression, we watch the news, and we get this impression that there is a huge, intractable problems that everybody keeps arguing about. There are, political issues about gun control, disagreements about climate change, elections, politics, what have you. What are you? And it seems to people that people are at loggerheads and they just can't find any way to move forward. What do you think that people should do to find solutions on how to move forward with these topics? Jose?
The rules question is very challenging actually because it addresses a lot of the major problems personally and globally. Yeah, it's a very tortuous route in my thinking in terms of trying to come up with a solution. But from what I learned from history, whenever there's a big disagreement such as this, it always starts from basically what's inside each and every person's heart in terms of negotiating what's really the most essential goals that has to be achieved for everyone, right? People have to care, but the problem to get to that point is a very, very difficult challenge because there's an ingrained belief between each and every one of us that our side is always correct and this is where it should be. So there has to be a change of perspective, and to have the change of perspective, there has to be some kind of education behind that. But then again, education is only data, right? It's only reasoning. The human mind is much more complex than that, right? There's this ingrained spirit within each and every one of us. There's an ingrained belief. So it's more like a religious conversion also, in terms of religion, or in terms of actually convincing someone. It may take generations, but I think for us, and whenever there's a challenge such as this, that we have to consider what's really going on, and that takes a lot of communication, trust, and ongoing patience in terms of time, and that's what it takes. That's what I think. Thank you.
This is Silicon Valley. We're in Silicon Valley. This place probably epitomizes failures and setbacks. And I'm sure many of you have known people or have even suffered some professional setbacks. What have your strategies been, or what have you seen people do in the face of setbacks and professional setbacks that they've encountered, and how do you think what the strategies were, how to get around those setbacks, and how have them move forward. Anyone would like to take volunteer? I mean.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. How do you deal with setbacks?
Yeah, professional setbacks, failure projects.
That's a very hard problem.
Right.
If one is in a rut, yeah, that's what happens when you get in a setback. Sometimes what I do is I just sleep. Sleep is good because you get to rest. However, you have to have enough time to sleep, yeah, to rest, to recover, because that's what happens. Yeah, if one gets hurt, you have to find a way to get healthy again and recover. And the way, and in some sense, one has to prepare. You have to prepare for that sleep, because while you're sleeping, you cannot work, you cannot do things to move forward, and you have to have enough savings or enough support from your friends and family so that you can recover. And for some of us, unfortunately, we don't have the time to, we don't have that savings, in which case we really get into a bad rut and is a almost tortuous route to come out, and there might not be a way to get out. So my only recommendation is find a way to save in terms of whether it's financial, in terms of friends, in terms of family, so you have a support system that you can deal with this situation that's likely to come up, some form of rut, some form of setback, that then you can have time to recover. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you.
There are only two speakers, so.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
two speakers, so we
Yeah.
could probably just go around.
Okay, so let's turn it around a little bit. The same question, but from the other side. You have someone, you know someone who is stuck in a rut and who's had a setback, business has failed, lost his job, whatever. How do you help that person move forward?
Good morning, Toastmasters and esteemed guests. I deal with a lot of people that go through a lot of different situations all the time, whether it's financial, family stuff, business stuff. I come from family business myself. I always say I think I've seen it all, which is not true. Something always comes up and I'm like, wow, this is a new one. But me coming from adversity myself throughout, especially this last 10 years where I went through a lot of things, same thing, financially, family, business, everything, you name it. I learned that when you go through adversity, it's actually the time that you need to hit the gas and go even deeper. A lot of people give up at that time. There were some situations where I wanted to crawl into a room and just like hide and like for the next 30 days like sleep and not face the world. And I wanted to do that so many times, but I realized that's not me and that's not who I am. And then everybody needs me, right? If I go down, then everyone else is gonna go down. If I'm not strong enough, then nobody else is gonna really feed off that strength. And I realized recently, even going through more adversity right now, it's like I realized I kind of got into the motion where I'm like, okay, I see what's going on in the universe. Like, it's telling me to slow down, but really it's I need to speed up and I need to keep moving because there's something good on the other side of that adversity. And so I always try to get people in that same kind of mindset is, don't let things bring you down. It's 90%, how you react to it, not what's going on, right? 10% is like what's going on, 90% is how you react to it. And that really just shows your character, how well you're able to move through things, and it's the same thing in business. A lot of businesses face a lot of downturns, people quitting on them, their most important, like top VP or executive leaving, They didn't get a contract, or this contract didn't pay out, and all of a sudden they're $500,000 under than what they expected it to be. So these kind of things happen all the time. It's important to, have the right team players, people on your team, have the right systems in place, and then pretty much become solid. Be a solid person and try to build a solid business.
Okay. I'm running out of questions. Okay. So now, moving forward, always seems to be associated with failure, some setback, some crisis, whatever. But Rudyard Kipling, and this is an inspiring, in one of his poems, If, said that success and failure are two imposters that should be treated the same. So my question is this: how do you move forward from success? I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Arsh.
Yeah.
Would you like to take that?
Sure. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. So, how do you move forward from success? I believe success is important just as failure is. Failure, you learn from your mistakes and you're able to change your route and move forward. But success, it makes us feel good. So once we experience success, we want more of it. And it's important to realize that this is short term. So those feelings are going to subside eventually from success. You feel it at the moment, and then eventually you're going to look for the next thing. So it's important to realize, in my opinion, that not to get too big-headed when you do have success, to realize that this is short term, and eventually you're going to have to move forward, and you're going to have different goals, and you're going to want to measure your success in a different way. So for me, when I do experience success, I'm very happy. You feel a sense of accomplishment and knowing that this new confidence is going to lead me into my next success. So every time you experience some kind of milestone like that, you build confidence and you build confidence and you build more confidence, and then eventually you will be able to achieve more success with the confidence that you have built over through your small successes. And it's also important to see the success in your small wins. So I feel like we look at it in a very big picture, where we have this big goal, and once we achieve that, we feel a sense of accomplishment. But it's a journey, right? It's a journey that leads us to that big goal. So I think it's also important to realize these small things that are leading you to your success need to be acknowledged. So that's my look on success.
So my next question is nothing profound, but it's about artificial intelligence. So a lot of people are complaining about how are fretting about how artificial intelligence is going to take over the world, and people are going to lose their jobs, and there are going to be economic repercussions. There's talk about truck drivers losing their jobs because self-driving trucks are going to be crisscrossing America. White-collar jobs are going to be outsourced to robots and machines. How do you think society should move forward on this particular topic, where the advances in technologies are not about enhancing human productivity, but are actually putting humans out of a job? Mark.
It's a tough topic. It's like I'm running for president. How to address the fact? Yeah, I mean, I guess the best way, it's sort of a cop-out answer, but the best way to address it is to acknowledge that it will happen. I think there's a lot of skepticism about how many jobs can be replaced by AI in the future, but it would be I would say the best way to address it is just knowing that it's very possible and sort of taking it to the extreme, and then from there, starting with what would happen if, say, this whole segment of our industry, of our population, was out of a job or out of this specific job. What if this job was off the table? Then from that perspective, you can start thinking, okay, well, they could work on this, they could do this. Maybe other things are like, what are alternatives to work? Like, a lot of people need something to stay active. You see it happen a lot with retirees, where when they're done with work, they sort of start to decline unless they pick up some new hobbies. So, acknowledging the human nature of declining when we don't have something to do, and addressing what happens when a lot of these older methods of finding things to do are no longer there. And I think there is a solution to it. It's just something that is not every day for us, but a lot of things that were every day 50 years ago aren't around anymore, and people have found ways to cope and to move forward. So I think the first step is acknowledging the fact that it could happen, and it very well might happen.
Those were the questions, all the questions that I had that I could think of. But thank you, everybody. That was really insightful, and everybody, really thank you for everybody for putting all their insights and thoughts into this.
Thank you, Haroon, for that interesting table topic session. We had a lot of interesting responses and interesting questions. Now we're going to move on to our speaking section. So today we tried out having table topics first, which was good because we had some people trickle in during. Before we get started on the speaking section, we have two speakers. There's Wai-Ming and Hannah. We have one evaluator, Jose. Can we get a second evaluator? Does anybody want to evaluate? Maggie, would you be open to evaluating?
Okay, try.
Okay. So you'll be evaluating Hannah's speech then. And then Jose, you'll be doing Wai-Ming's. So with that, I want to take a moment to talk about Wai-Ming. He's been a longtime member. He's a big advocate of speaking as much as possible. He often gives speeches where he'll have prepared earlier that week. And I think that's a good philosophy to have in Toastmasters whenever there's an open speaking slot, because you'll have a lot of different speaking engagements. You won't always have a lot of time to prepare. You won't always have not much time to prepare. A lot of times in work, you'll also have a presentation later that week that you'll want to do. So I do encourage everybody to try to speak as much as possible, similar to Wai-Ming. Wai-Ming will be giving a speech about informing. I don't know what the title of the speech is, but please help me welcome up Wai-Ming.
Thank you. Let me turn this on. So I'm going to be talking about a fascinating story. It's a tortuous road to come to this story. It took over 100 years and hundreds of thousands of people to build up this story. It's a very interesting story, but sort of complicated. So let's see if I can do it in the time that I have. So this is a story of how we're made of. Actually, more than that. This story takes billions of years to happen. And each one of us is made up of these molecules and atoms. And I'm going to talk about how the atoms themselves are made. So the story of the atom started thousands of years ago. But only within the last 100 years, people come to tell the story of the atom as something that's in the middle. There's something in the middle called the nucleus, and then something that's on the outside called the shells. The nucleus has a bunch of numbers, or each atom has a particular number called the atomic number. Now, this is the complicated part. So every atom or every element that we're made of has a number. The first number is 1, and that is the hydrogen atom. The second number is 2, and that's the helium. And as we go down the list of all these elements that are each one of them atoms, the numbers has significance. I'm going to try to do this in 6 to 8 minutes. This will never happen, but we'll give it a try. The idea is when we look at all the elements in this world, there are over 100 of them, but only 20 or 35 of those are important to life. The ones that are important are the ones in yellow. Those are the key to building life, whether it's water, it's H2O, or things that are made up of DNA, or proteins. Those are made of carbon and oxygen and nitrogen and phosphorus and some of the other elements. And then some of the other ones, the green ones, are sometimes essential for life. Like iron is important because it goes in our blood and it carries oxygen in the blood. And some other element like boron is important for plants because that's how the cell walls are formed. And then occasionally some special elements are needed for some special life. Those are the red ones. Total around 35 of the elements of all the 100 plus elements out there are important for life. But how do these elements come about? How do these elements, each element is an atom that has this center, the nucleus and the shell. How do these atoms come about? And they come about because of these numbers. Each hydrogen in the middle has a single positive charge. Helium has 2. Lithium has 3, and so on. And how did it happen? So the idea is, at the very beginning, there are just lots of these hydrogens out there. And they're everywhere. They're so far apart that it takes them a long time to even come together. However, they do come together, the hydrogen atoms. How come they come together? Because there's an attractive force. It's like a boy and a girl, or a boy and a boy. There's an attractive force that brings them together. That attractive force is gravity. They could be billions and billions and billions of miles apart, but because of gravity, it will take them billions and billions and billions and billions of years, but eventually, because of gravity, they'll come together. Unless they go very fast. And enough of them come together that, how many does it take? Like 10, the number 10 with 57 zeros behind it, that many of the hydrogen come together. That makes up something like the sun. And how big is the sun? The sun is 1.3 billion times Earth. You can actually fit 1.3 million Earth inside a sun. And there are 10 to the 57 of these hydrogen atoms in them. And by having them come together so much inside the space of the sun, I'm going to ask for more time. We'll see how this goes. There's so much pressure between the hydrogen atoms that they heat up. And when they heat up, they go faster. And when they go faster, sometimes they bang into each other. And then when they bang into each other, occasionally, they would fuse and become element number 2, helium. And sometimes those helium atoms could come together, a few of them, enough that they make the next element. They go from hydrogen to helium to carbon to oxygen to nitrogen. They're all type. So a lot of these elements would come together inside the sun by just because there's so many of them, and it's so hot. They're running around. They fuse together, and so from hydrogen all the way to iron, they are formed inside the sun just by the pressure of so many of them coming together. Sometimes some of these stars out there, of which there are 100 million trillion of them in the universe, sometimes they explode. And then when they explode, there's actually a lot more force involved, and they form other elements like copper and zinc and gold and platinum and everything else, except for 3 of them: lithium, beryllium, and boron, the light ones. And those are formed when these things get blown out and they flow around for billions of years, and eventually they do come together and they make up rocks and asteroids and planets and things like that. And because there are also these cosmic rays out there, oops. Sometimes the carbon or the nitrogen or oxygen would break apart and make things like boron. So there are 3 ways these elements are formed in the world. And it takes billions of years, much longer than we operate here on Earth. But because of that, there's actually all these elements in the periodic table from number 1 to number 95 or number 96. They're formed in the universe. And these are relatively how many of them are in the universe. A lot more hydrogen, followed by helium, a lot less lithium because the way they're formed and so on, a lot more iron in the world. That's what's in the universe. And because there's so many of them, they flow around through billions of years. They come together like forming planets like Earth. And over billions of years, I keep talking about billions because that's how long it takes. These things, the yellow ones, the green one, and the red one, come together in a different way to make up water, to make up DNA and amino acids and other biological things. That's how we're made. Now, so 3 ways that atoms or elements are made up of: inside the stars, by exploding stars, and by cosmic ray hitting some of the atoms on Earth or on planets. And by having these elements, different elements, they then made up biological molecules, and that's how life supposedly have come about. So that is the story that was built in the last 100 years. It's a good story because it's very consistent. Now, you can take that and see what you can use with. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Meng. I gave you a lot of extra time.
Thank you.
on that one. All right, everybody take a moment to write down some feedback on the ballots you see in front of you for White Name. going to get to our next speaker. Our next speaker is a long-time member at this point, I think. Kind of. About a year, maybe less. The speaker always has very practical business and life advice, I have noticed in the past few speeches, as well as table topics. Please help me welcome up Hannah to talk about, I'm not sure.
We'll talk about soccer today.
Oh, there you go. Very practical business and life advice.
Good morning once again, Toastmasters and fellow guests.
Good morning.
I am not talking about practical or kind of business. I guess I'm trying to tell a story more because I am terrible at telling stories. So this is my speech on my soccer story. And you might be thinking, soccer, what are you talking about? I haven't ran for a while, and it's true. I haven't been playing for a few years, but recently I got to see Jill Ellis. She's the U.S. women's soccer coach, national team, and she won 2 World Cups. And I got to see her speak on a live interview, and then after that I saw a lot of panelists speak, and it really just reminded me how important soccer was to my life, even though I'm not playing recently right now for the last few years. But also the panel speakers talked a lot about their success, and then they all, most of them came from some kind of team sports or had played soccer before. So I saw this was kind of a trend, and even if you haven't played team sports before, or maybe you're looking into getting into a team or playing on a team, or you don't have any kind of athletic background, it's working as a team. It really spoke to me because I came from playing soccer for over 10 years. So this is my soccer story. It all began in high school. So in high school, I was actually not even playing soccer. I was actually a cheerleader. You can't imagine me as a cheerleader, but I did cheerleading for 1 year. Because my best friend and neighbor got into cheerleading, and she's like, do it with me, because I have nobody to do it with me. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll be a cheerleader. So I was a cheerleader, and I was the weird, awkward cheerleader. I was not really into rah-rah, and not really into cheering everyone on, and I didn't know how to use my diaphragm, and I had no upper body strength. So I was the worst cheerleader ever, and so I did it for 1 year, and then I was in gym class my second year of high school, and our coach in gym was like, hey, we did this module on soccer for a month. He's like, I think you should try out for the team, the high school team. I'm like, me play soccer? I don't know about that. I'm not really into team sports. And so he's like, well, you just try to slide tackle this girl several times in gym class, and he's like, you're very aggressive. You should get that aggression out in soccer. And I was like, no, I don't know. And then so later that year, my dad's job actually got relocated to Southern California, so we moved from Northern California to Riverside area. So I was at a new high school. I was in bio class, and I was assigned a new lab partner, and my lab partner actually quickly became my first best friend in that new high school. And turned out she was the goalie of the soccer team. And she was like, hey, by the way, we're best friends, we're great lab partners. She's like, you're not going to see me anymore that much because, and I know we've been hanging out at my house, but you're not going to see me because I'm going to be at soccer practice, every evening. And I'm like, soccer practice? And she's like, why don't you come with me and try out for the team? And I was like, okay, fine. So I tried out, and I actually made it onto the team. And they're like, you've never played soccer before? All the other kids were played AYSO. They grew up, their parents would take them to the games, and I was like, no, I've never played before. It's my first time playing soccer, and they're like, well, you kind of have the natural ability. You'd actually make a good defender because you're really good at kind of seeing how people move. You're really good at scoping out the landscape and seeing different kind of plays and motions, so, you should be partnering with the goalie, and you and the goalie are already best friends. And so, of course, I played in high school. At the end of high school, I was very busy trying to get into college, and so I was the president of Interact Club, and I was volunteering a lot, so many hours, and actually ended up playing on 2 different club teams. So I played on the varsity team in high school, and then I played on 2 different private club teams. I don't know how that happened, but they really liked me, and they needed people in defense, and so it made me realize the importance of also committing to things, and then and also giving in your full commitment in things, because some people, they're like, well, I want to try it out, or they'd show up to practice sometimes, or they'd show up to games sometimes, but not all the time. And it was one of those sports where if not everyone was there, your team wouldn't win. So you wouldn't go for the championship, you wouldn't be able to win if not everybody was invested. So it really taught me that as well, and a lot of communication. I was terrible, and I'm still terrible, I'm still learning communication, of course, but the winning team always needs to talk and keep talking. When you're doing different kind of plays and working with different types of players, some players are, very flashy. Some players are very look at all the medals I have and all my trophies. and other players are very reserved and don't talk at all. So getting the team to talk on a regular basis, it really taught me that as well. Now going into college, of course, I couldn't play for the college team. I had to work because my parents didn't have enough money for college, so I couldn't play full-time soccer in college. But I did get to play on some intramural teams while I was in college, and so I got to see players that would come in and play barefoot in Santa Cruz, and a lot of different style playing as well. We would play on the beach, so that was actually one of the blessings that I got out of playing soccer in Santa Cruz. There's also a special field. There's a few special fields in Santa Cruz, so one was like right on the beach, and then one's like up in the mountains. So it really actually opened up my eyes as well, and I got to hear stories from different kind of players of different venues that they had played at themselves, or whether or not they grew up playing the game. After college, I ended up playing for the Bay Area Women's Soccer team, or Soccer League, sorry. Bay Area Women's Soccer League, usually in Los Altos, Mountain View. That's where we picked up games at some of the elementary schools. And so over there in that team, I played on a team called Chaos, and of course, they stuck to their name, always late to the games, didn't have the right uniforms on, always being yelled at by the referees for doing things that we weren't supposed to do. So it was definitely Team Chaos, and I played with Chaos for almost 5 years, I think, 4 or 5 years. And it was definitely an experience. I played with a lot of engineers, a lot of people in tech industry. So the women, like, they worked at PayPal, like at almost any kind of tech company, Adobe, whichever ones you can think of. And it was funny because, you know, they didn't seem like normal engineers. Like, they were definitely out of their element. They're like, you know, I work in tech, or I work in accounting or finance. But like, I'm here playing on the team. So it really just brings all kinds of people together when you're working as a team with different backgrounds. And so that's what actually made me realize how much I love the sport. So with that being said, I hope to go back to playing. You know, maybe you'll see me soon back on the team. But that just shows my love for soccer. I feel like it's an international sport. I love watching it. I love playing it. I don't know if it's your thing, but I highly encourage anybody to get into any kind of team sports. But that's my soccer story.
Okay, everybody take a moment to write some feedback on the card in front of you. With that, we'll start moving into our evaluation section. For that, I'm going to bring up our area director, Dan.
Thank you. I must apologize. I did not get the names of the evaluators. So, what?
I wrote them down on the sheet just in case.
Okay, awesome.
First is going to be Jose, then Mackie.
Okay, perfect. So to evaluate Wyming's speech, let me bring to the stage Jose.
Okay, then. The topic of Wyming's speech was, in a way, technical, but my first impression of it was something awesome, something that's beyond what I know. So it's something I would like to know, to know as far as what we're made of. The initial part of it, where it said 100,000 years, 100 years, that got me started as far as understanding what the topic is about. I was thinking maybe a little bit more the significance of your speech in the intro, just to get me a little bit more interested. Maybe maybe a part where what life is made of and how significant human life is in those terms. And then it proceeded towards a PowerPoint, towards a PowerPoint presentation. Very good. I like it because I like the way this is a good speech in terms of, for me, presenting what a good aspect of PowerPoint and not a good aspect of PowerPoint is. And I like the part where you highlight just you highlight the whole table of elements, and then you highlight certain parts of the elements that kind of explain explain certain elements that are significant to the building up of life. And that to me was very significant and very interesting, because it for me, when I see something like that, it gave me the impression that you actually did do your research, right? Because it took time to actually figure out that, oh yeah, this is the elements that goes together, and this is what it looks like. And you were also I like the way you made your hand gestures. The atom like this went like this. That actually activates the mind of the audience in terms of, oh, that's interesting, right? And you did move a lot also. There's a few points, and to me, my impression was when you made a little joke once in a while. That's very good also, right? That was very interesting, because it kind of broke the technical presentation into it broke the rhythm a little bit, but it made it interesting. It puts the audience back into getting interested in the topic again. And then closing, I would say just a little bit more in terms of wording, in terms of what the significance of your presentation is, in terms of what it can do for the audience, because a topical presentation is very hard to keep the audience keep the audience engaged. Okay.
Thank you. I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to the most interesting part of the speech, which was that periodic table.
Yes.
Thank you very much for such a subject-heavy speech in focusing on a few elements that weren't directly related to the subject matter, such as the humor.
Yeah.
An obvious example being comparing the attraction of atoms to the attraction of people. Put some very interesting images in my mind. So thank you very much for that evaluation. And with that, I'd like to call to evaluate Hannah's speech. Maggie, please. Let's give her a hand.
First of all, thank you for Hannah to deliver this speech. I really like Hannah the way to deliver her speech. Every time she stay in the stage, she always very naturally to relate the topic to her experience or her life. I like her opening to bring up, say, just like make a joke herself and make every audience to attract to her story. Her confidence posture make her speech more attractive to make the audience to attract the audience to follow along, to listen what her story is. What I also like the structure of the speech, the bring up the story. Her structure is mostly follow up the timing of how her involved the soccer's and those things. If I really want to make a point to some suggestion to Hannah, what I feel a speech is it's very natural for you to bring up this story, because this is a story what you experience, is what happened. But only things I would like the speech, even is when we do the public speech, we need have emphasize one point. I think your story, first of all, I saw that this story about leadership or communication, or later on is, so I lost, I didn't know what's your emphasis on. I think you can pick up one point, just emphasize one side, rather than just this is a timing for your soccer. Other things is the speech. For me, I have to do, and a lot of feeling words, and I'm doing this also. Hannah, and maybe it's because I'm evaluated, so I pay more attention. So I find out you have pay attention to your feeling words. But I do want from Hannah's speech, I feel like people don't judge other people by their appearance. You never know what they have potential. It is like Hannah, she was doing soccer, and she was, I think she was talking, she take a lot of roles on her life, and she can manage that. It's very, for me, it's like a super person. They can take limited time and take this a lot of role, or do very excellent job in each of the position. That is amazing. That is what I have to learn from Hannah's. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent evaluation. I can tell you took plenty of notes. One thing that you might want to do in the future is jot down what you the major points that you want to hit, because there was a little bit of a pause there at some point, but then when you hit the part about emphasizing just one point, you really shined at that point when you were talking about that. And so it would be nice if you had indicated that as one of the main points that you wanted to hit, so that when you're struggling a little bit, you can say, okay, what was the next main point?
And this
What-
is my
what- what's
first,
one-
first
yeah.
evaluation, and I even asked who know how to do that. He was just, why me? I never listened to that. We'll ask her to point out how to evaluate.
Right, and an excellent technique that I learned from one of our more senior Toastmasters at my home club was, jot down a bunch of notes, but then when you're done, jot down the main points that you want to hit, and also while you're reviewing, maybe jot down like one word off to the side for each of the things, and then expand a little bit at the bottom on them. So just a minor thought about, even after writing the summary, just jot down the major points you want to hit during the evaluation. But that all said, thank you very much for ending the evaluation on a high note, talking about how much it inspired you and all the various things that you heard her do. Always a wonderful idea to end an evaluation on an upbeat tone. Just, it not only makes the audience feel better, it also lets the speaker know that you're not just being thoroughly negative. Starting on a high note is also a very good idea as well. So thank you very much for that evaluation. And now let's, after that rather tortuous evaluation of evaluator, let's move on to the other duty masters. Timer, could you please give the timer's report?
Yes. As far as speeches, Wai-Ming, I gave quite some extra time. Yes, we had some extra time. So you took about 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Hannah, you were within time at 6 minutes, 30 seconds. For our table topics, Dan, you had 50 seconds. Maggie, you had 2 minutes, 40 seconds. Jose, a minute 53. Wai-Ming, a minute 55. Hannah, a minute 45. And Arsh, a minute 38. Jose, both evaluators were in time. Jose at 3 minutes and 9 seconds, and Maggie just at the edge, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did we have a grammarian today?
No
No.
grammarian today.
Fair enough. We didn't need to worry about our bad grammar. For the word master, that was me today. So Jose used the word of the day once. Wai-Ming used it twice, so congratulations, Wai-Ming. I think I snuck it in there at the end.
Can I take one of Wyming's to use?
Thank you. Do you have a joke master today?
I don't think we have a joke
I think we
master
don't.
today.
Okay,
Why
fair
me?
enough.
Can always.
No, he had a lot of
Right out, Joe.
Random jokes.
After your speech, I'm still trying to decide in a humorous fashion whether a helium atom is the daughter of two hydrogen atoms or two hydrogen atoms that are currently getting together. Did we have an odd counter today?
Yeah, I'm out on it.
Oh, odd counter. Perfect.
So, Mr. General, evaluating the fellow Toastmasters, I get in the habit of every time I hear something, I just take a tick mark. So some of you have a lot of tick marks. Jose, I only heard one though. Mark, you had 7. Dan, you had 8. Maggie, you have 15. Anna, you spoke a lot, that's why. You have 21. Harun had 1. Ash has 8. That's what I have. I didn't count myself, so I don't know.
It's very difficult too. Thank you. Thank you for being so diligent. I did not even notice mine.
Oh, right, ballot counter. Who's the ballot counter?
Oh,
Maggie.
Okay. Everyone go ahead and pass the ballots over to Maggie when you're done.
sorry about that. And I've already given an evaluation of the various evaluators. Thank you so much for being so detailed with the accounting. And with that, it went pretty well, especially given that we had so few people at the beginning. That was an excellent decision to move the table topics to the beginning to let people trickle in over time, because right now we have a much more healthy turnout than we did when we first started. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to the Toastmaster.
President.
President, my mistake, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
In my home club, it would be the Toastmaster.
Yeah, it's all the little differences, right?
Precisely.
Thank you. Thank you very much for attending today's Toastmaster meeting. I learned a lot. I learned about how to overcome adversity, technical presentation, and sports. That was an interesting meeting today. So, Ars, would you like to comment as far as what you think of the meeting, how the meeting went, and yeah?
Yeah, I think it was good. I know I came in a little bit later. I apologize if I disrupted anyone. But I enjoyed it. I like that everyone gets a chance to speak, because of the other club I'm in, it's very hard for someone to get the chance to speak because it's just such a big club. There's like 40 people. Yeah,
Go on.
so it's really nice. It's more intimate here, and you really get to know everybody, and everyone gets a chance to speak. So I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody has announcements? As far as yes, Dan.
I
Yeah,
just
go
wanted
ahead.
to say, I don't know how many officers are here today, because I'm still not too sure about everybody's names. But officer training is coming to a close at the end of this month, and starter speakers currently, I believe, only had 1 officer trained so far. So I'd like to encourage everyone who is an officer to go over to the D101 TM website. I'll be talking about this also during the area council meeting tomorrow. And sign up for club officer training if you have not already done so.
Yeah.
I can send out an email later on, give you the URL. I think I already sent that earlier as well. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Dan.
Quick question on that one. So we had 1 officer move, and then Maggie actually attended the training last week in the place of that officer, but on the, I think, website it's still Prakash. So is there any way we could get a credit for her to take over? Like, I don't know who we could like contact about that.
Yeah, so if you go over to Club Central, I forget exactly which entry it is on the Club Central page, but there is a place in there where you can change who's which officer. So if you go over there and change it, and then maybe shoot me an email indicating, Maggie took it, she wasn't, which office was it?
It was VP membership.
VPM. So Maggie took it. She wasn't VPM at the time. She is now. Can we please get credit for that? Then I can forward that to Vaibhav Singh, who's been keeping track of that, and we can get credit for her.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
And it's every, when we get re-elected, we have to keep doing the same training, or how does it work?
Yes, exactly. So club officer training is a once every 6 month thing. Even if you've been in the same officer role for the last 20 years, they still ask you to re-attend officer training every 6 months.
And when was the deadline again? Is it
The deadline is the end of this month.
end of this month? Okay.
Exactly. So let me just bring up. I'm sorry, I should have done this earlier.
I think the 24th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th are left. But Monterey, San Jose.
Oh, so you've already brought up that page. Awesome. You're ahead of me on this one.
Maybe not the Monterey one.
Okay, I can go to one of them. I'll probably.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, because I went last week, so if you go, then I think we'll have at least 4.
Yeah, 4 is the minimum to qualify for the Distinguished Club requirement.
Yeah. Yeah, because our president's
We'll
currently.
mark that down.
Our president's out of the country right now.
Alright, yeah.
Fair enough. There are some things that are beyond control.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as our open house, I still have to get with Jennifer for the dates and the logistics on that one. So when she gets
Ooh,
back.
that reminds me.
Yeah.
You said you were looking for a speaker for.
I'm
guest
I'm
speaker?
in. I'm in. Would you have anybody?
I
Because
don't
I
have
saw
any.
that. I saw that part where open the spots for speakers. I saw that. Yeah.
Speakers for station.
Yeah,
right?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you did sign up for speakers
Yeah,
for
yeah,
station,
yeah.
and you sent out an email.
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay,
But
fair
I'll
enough.
wait for Jennifer and then the
That would be an excellent way to do it.
Yeah.
Because that is the primary resource that we have in District 101 for getting guest speakers.
I saw the logs. Some speakers are already out. So yeah, I saw the sign-ups.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. So, and for next week, anybody want to sign up for next week? I think I'm speaker 1. I put speaker 1 for me. Anybody?
I could be GE or
GE.
I can Toastmaster.
Maggie's Toastmaster. Mark is General Evaluator. Okay. Thank you very much. Now we go to presentation of awards. So for best speaker, where's the evaluators. This one and then
These
speaker.
are two, both same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Ash. Okay. So our for best speaker we have both. Oh, sorry. So Wai Ming and Hannah. Yeah. Both of you the same.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
So for value, that's me. I'm evaluator. I'm evaluator. Thank you. And for table topics, ours.